Hey my students, how you doing? Hope you having good day. In this video, I'm gonna talk about my student DEKU. What if DEKU inherites his mom QUIRK? So watch till end. And subscribe for more, also like this video, it helps me to stay motivated. And don't forget to check it author of this story and show some love, name of this fanfic is Sick and Quirky by insxnerate. Also if you have any complaints about videos, feel free to comment, I will try to improve them. Let's jump in video. Midoriya Izuku is a frail youngster. Why? For two reasons. First, his immune system was compromised from birth. He has visited clinics and hospitals on and off since he was a little child as a result. Regarding the second reason, his quirk manifested itself when he was 4. He says, I guess it's the attraction of metal objects, in response to inquiries regarding his peculiarity. My mom has the quirk to pull small things towards her. I think it's a slight variation of that. He gently scratches his cheek. It's kind hard to use, though. My head hurts when I use it too much and I get a migraine. He started to utilize his quirk more as he grew older in the hopes that it would develop stronger. Indeed, he had sufficiently increased his endurance for it. He would soon be able to use his oddity for everyday tasks like picking up spoons or driving nails. However, moving huge objects like refrigerators and cars remained completely unfeasible. However, when he and Bakugou Katsuki were 7 years old, something happened. They were with some of their mates, playing hoops. Even though Izuku was terrible at the game, they were actually having a great time. Playing rough, Katsuki and a friend were having a great time being quite competitive. Izuku and Sakaki, the other friend, watched, hoping that the fighting brats wouldn't kill them. And they struck the portable basketball hoop in an odd mishap. It fell to the ground and struck Sakaki directly. The boys were taken aback and, well, it happened too quickly for them to process what to do. Izuku instantly activated his quirk. Izuku concentrated intensely on keeping the entire structure 10 feet above the ground. It wavered with the slightest distraction. Why you idiot? Katsuki exclaimed as he pulled Sakaki out of harm's way, quickly recovering from his first astonishment. DEKU. He exclaimed, leave it. And Izuku carried it out exactly. He forced himself to release it slowly in order for it to land securely. He was almost on his knees, panting heavily, and had trouble breathing. Katsuki went to check on Sakaki and made his way over to DEKU. Izuku felt the migraine's pain right away and flinched, holding his head. It stung more severely than normal. A lot more, and there was no end in sight. Actually, things were becoming worse. In an effort to lessen the anguish, he squeezed his eyes closed and rubbed his temples with his hand over his head. With his ears suffering from the loud noise, Katsuki's speech made his brain tingle. DEKU, you alright? He felt a strong pain at his head, therefore he tried to shift his head but gave up. He moaned under control at the discomfort. He collapsed to the floor, his head resting on the floor as he tried to recall how to breathe. Katsuki's terrified voice started yelling, hey. Call an adult. But DEKU was unable to hear her. Every strand of his body started to scream in anguish as the pain and aching intensified. Oh my god, please stop, it hurt so much. He sent another wave of spasms through his body when he coughed. With every motion, he experienced a stab to the head. Another cough followed the first one, and then another, and then another. He also started to taste iron in his mouth blood. He was coughing up blood in a bizarre way. He mentally cursed as he felt himself being hoisted up and moved. It also sent another ripple of spasms through him. It was a difficult journey because every step he took caused pain to his body, burned his lungs, and caused headaches. He wasn't sure when he had passed out, but it had been 2 days when he woke up. He called the episode a rebound ever since. What would happen if he misused or overused his quirk's power? He physically becomes a little weaker with every rebound. It was highly probable that he had reduced his life expectancy. He was sick far more frequently and frequently had blood in his cough. He barely missed the school attendance cut and made regular trips to the hospital. He even lost his right to attend physical education lessons. His aspiration to become a hero had to die. Really, it wasn't a forced choice. It was only that. His boyhood friend was crying and begging him to please not fucking do that again when he had woken up that day in a hospital bed. All of his passion and dreams had just melted away in shame. He became even more disappointed upon witnessing his mother weep and scream out of concern. He's decided on something. His destiny was not to become a hero. He would come up with another way to support the community. A method that spared him from entering perilous fights and endangering his life. A way without scaring his childhood friend and giving his mother heart palpitations. At that point, he became aware of the UA support course. The course that concentrates on supporting the heroes and producing the essential tools and weapons to enable them. It generated fresh curiosity about Izuku. He had said, Kaken, I'm joining the support course in UA. So you get into the hero course too, okay? He said. This is the tale of how Midoriya Izuku rose to become the greatest support hero of all time. Today was Midoriya Izuku's kindergarten graduation. He wasn't able to start school with the other kids his age since he had a mild case of bronchitis for the past month. While Midoriya Izuku was relieved that her child had recovered sufficiently, she was also concerned that her offspring might have social discomfort similar to her own. Consequently, she had assured her friend Bakugou Katsuki that their sons would be kindergarten buddies, just like the women. 3-year-old Bakugou Katsuki asked, "A new kid?" And again, "Mom is friend's kid?" Bakugou Katsuki nodded and said, "His name is Izuku." She calmed her child, hoping he would listen, but her child was frowning like a crazy person. "Take care of him, okay? Izuku is very weak and Katsuki is strong, so you should protect him," she said. She said to herself, "Oh well, it'll work out somehow," and dropped her child off to kindergarten. It's unfortunate that her child ended up being like her, but as Inko lived, perhaps so could her child. Katsuki mocked. He muttered, "Tch. Why do I have to take care of a weakling?" And stormed into the kindergarten. "I'll tell him not to come near me," he said. When he heard his teacher say, "Katsuki-kun, good timing. And come meet Izuku-kun." He sighed mentally, there it is. Nevertheless, he approached and saw a little, skinny youngster who was roughly half his height. His hair was wavy with streaks of green frizz. His face appeared mushy, with a line of freckles covering his pale complexion. The teacher turned to face Katsuki uncomfortably as Izuku pulled on his trousers. "What? He appears to be a doll of some kind." He hesitated before saying, I'm Midoriya Izuku." "Nice to meet." His speech was interrupted by a sharp cough. The sides of his mouth were bloody when he stood up. The teacher became quite alarmed and exclaimed, "Oh my god, Izuku-kun, are you alright? Hey, get some tissues. Should I call an ambulance?" Katsuki was terrified of shells. It could be argued that this was the first time he had witnessed someone of that age appearing so sick and fragile and coughing up blood. It left his 3-year-old mind utterly terrified and paralyzed with worry. As he wiped the blood from his mouth, Izuku quickly reassured, trying not to look like a burden. "Ah, no, this happens all the time, don't mind it." As Katsuki had never seen a man as skinny and ill as Izuku, it was a startling realization that it occurs frequently. As a result, when Izuku began coughing once more, Katsuki became extremely alarmed. "I have to defend him because this guy is going to totally die, Mom was right." "Bag?" Katsuki asked the smaller child, looking daggers at him as though the boy had offended him in any way. "Are you my new mom now?" Izuku interrupted himself, giving Katsuki a menacing glance. "Yes. Handkerchief?" he asked again. "Yes," said Izuku. Not pausing, Katsuki asked, "Medicine?" Izuku moaned, palms on his face, "Oh. My. God. Yes. You've already asked it 3 times this morning alone, twice as you were extending your greetings. Why do you keep asking?" "Look, Deku, I know how you freaking act without thinking," Katsuki yelled, "and I don't need you to end up dying out there while I'm not around. I won't die from just going to UA for an entrance exam." Izuku moaned. "You're the kind of idiot that'll run out in front of a car to save a cat." Katsuki responded, "I can't trust you." He grumbled, "Jesus Christ, Kakin. I'm turning 16. Katsuki huffed at that. He turned around and walked out of the Midoriya residence, slamming the door behind him, complaining, "Go to your stupid exam." Kakin?" Izuku asked, taken aback. It was a very quick turn of events. He most certainly wasn't expecting that response. "Well, anything." After putting on his shoes, he said his mother a heartfelt goodbye. He noticed a letter on the metal gate as soon as he left his residence. "You had better not fail." He grinned. Indeed, Kakin could be such a tsundere at times. Deku arrives at UA Academy with a sense of self-assurance. The school is so. He murmurs to himself, huge. Yes, that much is evident, yet there aren't many people. Exams for the support course are held 1 week before those for any other course. Yes, I understand. The school would have its hands full because the majority of those who are not accepted into the hero course would swarm into the general course. It would be simpler to enroll students in the support course a week in advance and choose the top candidates from the waiting list because it is a crucial course with insufficient enrollment. "Hey, you." A girl with pink hair and odd, golden eyes called out to him, patting him on the shoulder and saying, "Looking pretty scary there." She laughed broadly and proceeded to strike up a discussion. Izuku then saw that people were staring at him strangely. She chuckled, "That was some intense mumbling you did there. Just thinking about it makes me start up again, oh god, haha," she said. Izuku reddened. He muttered, "Sorry about that. Oh my goodness, how could he act like this on his first day here?" A female saw him too, and it seems like a bad first impression. Does she also think I'm weird? Alright, let's head to the examination hall and stop your hilarious mumbling," the girl said, swiping an arm around his neck. He was silent and said, wait, okay. What's your name? She asked with a smile as she and Izuku moved side by side. Izuku asked, pointing to himself, me? Midoriya Izuku. As soon as she heard Midoriya cough, Hatsume said, Hasume. Nice to meet you Midoriya. Haddock was startled. Did he choose to arrive at tests unwell, or did he choke? In any case, Hatsume interrupted, are you okay, Midori when she saw something strange in Midoriya's hand which he had coughed into. Something red that hadn't been there earlier appeared suspiciously like blood. When Hatsume finally located the source, she noticed blood at the boy's mouth's corners. Ah, was Midoriya's reply upon realizing it as well. Hatsume exclaimed, Midoriya. What type of state did you arrive in? He soon clarified, it's not a problem, really. I've always been like this. You're worrisome. Hatsume breathed a sigh of relief. If anything's bad tell me, okay? I've only known you today, but having someone I know get into critical because I wasn't paying attention is the worst feeling ever. With a charming smile, Midoriya said, Thanks Hatsume. Attack. Hatsume shook her head dismissively. Midoriya was a very special small child. In response to his gratitude, she chose to chuckle. You're welcome. When they arrived at the support course participants hall, they looked up each person's name. There were only 8 or 10 persons in each hall because the exam required time and room to work with details, therefore, there were roughly 20 classes in all. Hatsume muttered, I'm in 3rd. It was Midoriya, 12th. Looks like we aren't together. Hatsume pounded the air, well, then. Best of luck to you, Midoriya. I hope we see each other in school. With a high five to Hatsume, Midoriya said, good luck to you too, Hatsume-san. With a supportive smile, Hatsume gave Midoriya a fist bump and Midoriya returned the favor. After that, everybody separated to go to their exam rooms. Izuku leaned back against the table. He wanted to cry. I did horribly, he moaned. I was so nervous I had difficulty breathing. Although he had assured Kaken that he would gain entry, his self-assurance was now vanishing quicker than a falling coin. Now that the written exams were finished, he needed to take a quick break because his lungs were hurting from the tension. He remained at his table, comfortably, while the other test takers had left for the break. The teacher saw him and said, hey. You there, you okay? As she walked by. Looking up, he asked, is that present, Mick? He leaped up. He blurted out, why yes, I am. And added, just stressed out. Laughing, Present Mick intervened and put an arm around Izuku's shoulders. In an attempt to be encouraging, he exclaimed, come on, boy. No use being all that. You've got another test going. And an empty stomach doesn't help. He hauled Izuku up and started pulling him away in the direction that Izuku thought was the cafeteria. Izuku coughed dryly. This is terrible, he put his palm to his mouth. I'm glad I got to meet Present Mick. He felt worn out from the day. Maybe he needed to take his medication. What time is it? He was exhausted. Perhaps Katsuki had reason to be concerned about him. Present Mick halted, hey. You alright? You look a little pale. Izuku was startled out of his reverie by this. I've scared a pro hero away, oh no. Yes, I'm fine. He exclaimed, removing his hand from Present Mick's. Nothing's wrong, really. He faked a smile. Present Mick, nevertheless, forbade that. Nope, that's exactly what my super sickly acquaintance always says before throwing up blood, the teacher snarled, tightening his hold on the boy's arm. I'm taking you to recovery girl. He yelled out, wait, no. I can't. I'll miss the practical. Present Mick averted his eyes at once. He eventually realized this test-taking idiot was pushing himself when he said, what, you are feeling under the weather, after all. Izuku had his mouth covered. I apologize. Present Mick turned to go. That settles it. You're going to the infirmary. He can't allow the youngster to finish the test now that he is aware of how the child was truly feeling. No. Izuku exclaimed, swerving to a sudden halt. I'm not. Are you a baby or something? I promised Kaken that I would pass the test, and that isn't possible without that idiotic practical examination, so let's just go with that, then. He shot back. I absolutely cannot miss the practical exam. I can't give up now. Present Mick moaned, look. There's really no point in going if you're gonna collapse. Izuku bit his lower lip and said, but I don't want to fail the exam. Present Mick sighed. With concern evident in his voice, Present Mick questioned, are you really sure you can go on? Izuku exhaled a relaxed sigh after swallowing his medicines with water. It's finally finished and done with all those bothersome stuff. He smiled as he turned to face Present Mick and nodded. I'm fine. This actually happens all the time, so Present Mick pointed at Izuku and said, that's another thing my sickly acquaintance always says. Present Mick is an experienced man in this field, Izuku reflected, not a single hint lost. I laughed, I think I'll get along with that sickly acquaintance of yours, then. Alas for me. Present Mick joked, seriously, if I get in trouble for this, I'm gonna cry, okay? I don't care about the reason this time, but if you feel sick, tell the examiner and excuse yourself, okay? He replied, I'll pass the message on so the teacher would look out for you. Yes sir. Izuku smiled appreciatively. Thank you very much. President Mick looked at the time, apparently content with Izuku's cheerfulness at this point. They had only been in break for half of the 2 hours that it lasted. Well then, good luck with the practical. He grumbled, after all that trouble, you better pass. Hatsume charged Midoriya. And said, where were you? Her expression was terrified, as though she had been running for an hour trying to find the youngster. Izuku laughed, oh, just round the corner, dying. He quickly clarified, noticing Hatsume's embarrassed expression. I was joking. He exclaimed. Hatsume said, don't joke about things like that. In a panic. She sighed with relief as she sat down across from Izuku. That's something that could happen. I mean you were coughing blood just this morning, but man. That test was pretty hard. She grumbled, but it's alright. When the practicals come, I'll get my babies to shine. She laughed. Izuku took a sip of his apple juice and tried to relax in preparation for the test. That a weird term to call your inventions. He replied. Although he admits that the creations are the offspring of an inventor, it's unlikely that he had ever heard the term used in person. It's kinda cute. Hatsume inquired, what do you name your babies? What about you, Midoriya? I don't really call them anything. Hatsume chuckled, typical. For a moment, Izuku pondered how Hatsume and he were conversing so peacefully. Hatsume behaved as though she was completely uneasy, and it was almost as if there was no awareness of the inspection at all. And maybe the pressure Izuku was feeling was relieved by her upbeat demeanor. It was a pleasant emotion. Izuku hoped they both did well on this test. Then, he might be friends with Hatsume for more than just a day. Hello, everyone. Exclaimed the teacher with blue hair. Wows were heard from the test takers as they turned to face the teacher, who was dressed in an extremely skimpy outfit that managed to flaunt her sex appeal, while yet projecting a respectable and non-slutty image. She carried a whip that looked like adult material and had a mask over her eyes. With a smile on her face, I am Midnight, the hero who is only allowed to be 18 years old. I will be in charge of your practical exam today. The throng let out claps and cheers, lifting everyone's spirits. Hatsume had voluntarily participated because well, why not? With anticipation building and their nerves forgotten, everyone had smiles or grins on their faces. She waved the whip at the screen, let's get started. I'll explain the rules now. All of you will be creating something out of this. She pointed to a black mountain made of tools, plastic and metal, calling it a pile of junk. While others exclaimed with joy, saying woo or yes, others scowled and groaned, complaining about how water that's ridiculous. Midnight went on, the hero course is the focus of the UA support department and that is what we will test you on. Firstly, all of you will team up into pairs of your own choice. Then you will learn your partner's quirk and make something that applicates or supports your partner, accommodating their quirks. The instant Midnight said pairs, Hatsume's gaze met Izuku's, who had also been observing. Hatsume gave him a sly smile in return. But be warned. Midnight said sternly, your partner's quirk is very vital to your situation, so you should choose wisely. Your partner's ability to use the device also matters, so take some time to practice using them. Stranger things, huh? Given that this is a quirk accommodating technology, what happens if someone is not quirk-like? Would that imply greater creative freedom for the inventor? You have 6 hours. Midnight exclaimed, gesturing up to a big clock above the stage that read 6 o'clock instead of the actual time. Your exam starts. Now. People started running around and when they heard someone cry, what's your quirk? Or pair with me, especially to those who were still alone, mayhem broke out. Because everyone was so frantic, they were all pushed around in the middle of the crowd. Hatsume pulls Izuku's arm before he collapses after he is shoved aside and loses his equilibrium. Midoriya. She exclaims, this way. After a few minutes of fighting, they are able to escape the mayhem. Many others had followed suit and were making their way to a corner of the enormous hall to begin conversations. Izuku and Hatsume followed suit. She asked him, what's your quirk? As soon as they were comfortable. Izuku started, it's called magnet. Unofficially. I can control any object made of metal, but I cannot lift anything big or heavy. He clarified, drawbacks. I get a migraine from exerting myself and overuse will result in a rebound. Rebound? Hatsume inquired, showing curiosity now. It's a little difficult to explain, but basically my bodily functions collapse. Hatsume stammered, then snapped back to attention. Okay, that's all I need. Izuku inquired, what's yours? It's called zoom. Simply speaking, I can see far distances. She clarified, there's not really any drawback to speak of. Izuku said, a vision quirk, huh? That's tricky. Hatsume smiled, but we gotta try, right? Magnet, was it? I'll do something with it. Izuku grinned back and said, "I'll do my best with your zoom too. Anything I can use, he said as he peered around the junkyard. He cleared his throat. There was dust on something at this place. Finders keepers. Midnight exclaimed, abruptly speaking into the microphone, there are some things in that junk pile that are new and not old useless junk. Izuku took it up. I see. Maybe I can use it for something, he murmurs. Something that could accommodate a peculiar view. This quirk would be perfect for a test taker if Izuku doesn't truly need to increase the utilization of it. Provided that the invention serves a purpose, anything that doesn't obstruct the vision would be acceptable. That's not what Izuku wants to do, though. He desired anything to validate her eccentricity. At the side, he noticed an alarm clock. Clock alarm. Alright. Izuku frequently enjoyed investigating the uses of sound waves. Take echolocation, for instance. That was off topic, though. Headphones. Headphones. Silent. Again, he's straying from the subject. Buzzing. Waves of sound. Waves of sound. Ultrasonography. Soundtrack. People are often tranquil when they listen to music. Eliminating interfering thoughts. Concentrating. Concentrating. Ah, with a sudden flash of inspiration, Izuku raised his head. I've got it. Hatsum exclaimed, oh, I'm so excited to make my babies. She instantly smacked herself. Oh, I could imply rockets in boots and create jetpacks. She reprimanded herself, no. I gotta focus. Magnet. The capacity to manipulate light tiny metal things. There are awful effects to overuse and exertion. Would anything like a manual motor move be acceptable? Something more straightforward. She rummaged among the trash pile. Magnet, magnet, magnet. She came to an end. What are these? She questioned, glancing at the 4 sizable, heavy components. There were 2 red and 2 blue. Its actual size could hardly have exceeded that of a bag. She realized that these were magnets. Midnight mentioned something about new items concealed among the clutter. Looking at it now, she saw innumerable items, including batteries, that appeared to be rather new. She ran about gathering everything she required. Everything she required has been found. Let's go see my babies. She gave herself a mental high five. She had an unwavering preference for mechanical engineering. Now that she knew precisely what she intended to produce, the two set to work right away. They built their innovation, adjusted its application, and ensured it operated safely in 3 hours. And with their innovations in hand, they convened in the shared private workspace they were granted at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hatsum got things going first. She demonstrated to Izuku what appeared to be an extremely advanced hoverboard. Whoa. Izuku said, amazed, did you really make this with junk? Cool, huh? It's my newest baby, she exclaimed. She revealed to him the underside, which contained a gear geared from 0 to 3. It even has power settings. Izuku laughed. Do I try it out? At the signal from Hatsum, Izuku changed the setting from 0 to 1. The board was raised several feet above the ground as the homemade rocket ignited. Izuku stood on it gingerly, keeping his balance. Izuku turned the dial to number 2, and Hatsum gave a thumbs up. Izuku lost his footing when the board lifted abruptly. Hatsum exclaimed, whoops. For a brief period before realizing that Izuku wasn't too high up and saying, oh well. Izuku smiled and exclaimed, that was cool. I was floating and stuff. Oh wait, if the booster only goes in one direction, maybe I can move just the frame of the hoverboard. It wouldn't be too heavy, and I'll be able to change directions. That's. Hatsum exclaimed, sounding surprised. It's a great idea. I didn't think of that. She exclaimed, you're genius. Izuku blushed and laughed shyly before saying, thanks. Hatsum ignored Izuku's ashamed moment as she returned her attention to her design, considering how to make it lighter or more balanced. Ah, right. Hatsum-san, could you try out my invention? Izuku responded. Hatsum spun around. Sure. Izuku then revealed to her what appeared to be a hearing aid. An extremely altered, utterly bizarre-looking hearing aid that most likely wasn't functional as one. It caught her attention. He said, put it at your ear. Curious, Hatsum followed instructions. Now press the topmost button at the hook side of the device. A quiet buzz, more like a hum, Hatsum thought, came from the device when the button was pressed. Her left ear, the one in which she had the hearing aid, oddly was unable to detect the sound. The sound seemed far away, since only her other ear could hear it. However, the sound was distinct from ambient noise. Try using your quirk. It took Hatsum a time to realize that Izuku was conversing with her. As she turned on her zoom and peered out the window, she replied, ah, sure. Her gaze fell on a man standing just outside the school gates. The man entered the classroom with composure, looking like a skeleton and wearing a yellow suit with stripes that was a size too big for him. President Mick met him, put an arm around him, and guided him the remainder of the way. Hatsum. Hatsum jolted awake from her daze. She was in the middle of an exam and she had forgotten about it. She instantly turned off the buzzing, asking, "Hey?" Izuku laughed. "That buzzer is made to calm your nerves down," he said. "Simple sounds like that can clear your mind of everything else." He clarified, "For a quirk like yours, you can focus completely on just analyzing. Because you seem like the person that'd get distracted easily." Hatsune was taken aback. He created something based on an inference drawn from their brief interactions. She wrapped a bear hug around Izuku. "You're so awesome, Izuku." Izuku gave a startled yell, blushing slightly from the close embrace. Hatsune saw and Midnight burst into their private moment from the workshop's rear entrance. "Hey, kids." Izuku gave a yelp. Arms still encircling Izuku, Hatsune glanced up questioningly. She said, "Oh, Midnight-san." Midnight smiled and said, "I come with good news. Your results have been finalized." "Huh?" exclaimed Izuku. Hatsune asked, "But isn't there about 2 hours left?" "I never said you have 6 hours to complete your invention." She giggled. "I meant to say that you had 6 hours to pass the exam." She chuckled. Hatsune said, "That is evil, though smart. As to be expected of you, eh?" Izuku became alarmed and exclaimed, "So those who don't pass by then? Are they eliminated?" Midnight scolded, "Well, yeah. Speed and efficiency is important in this department." Returning the focus to her speech, she exclaimed, "Anyway, as I was saying. We have been watching your every move and deemed you worthy of this school." Wait, does that mean well done, you made it through?" exclaimed Midnight. Midoriya. Hatsune gave Izuku a tighter hug and exclaimed, "We did it." With excitement. "Why yeah, we did." Hatsune released Izuku right away, asking, "Huh? Wait, Midoriya. Are you crying?" in a terrified voice. "Was it my hug? Did I break a rib?" "No, no." Izuku exclaimed, anxiously waving his arms, "I'm just really happy." Hatsune sighed and gave another hug. "I look forward to 3 years with you, Midoriya," she said with a beautiful smile. "When that buzzer's all fixed and perfect, I want it." At the very end, Izuku chuckled and exclaimed, "I want the hoverboard." He also continued, "But I'm really glad we both passed, Hatsune-san. Good luck, Kaken." With the brightest smile he could muster. Katsuki gave a growl. He said, "Go back to sleep." Despite having the flu, Midoriya Izuku refused to stay in bed as Katsuki took his crucial exam. All he could do was crawl to the door huddled into a mound of dark green comforters, encased in blankets. "I'm already kinda okay. I'll be better by the time you get back," he reassured. "I get sick easy, but they don't last long." "That's what you said 9 years ago, vomiting blood." Katsuki sighed, "Don't give me that utter bullshit, I'm never believing you again." A burning ache of memory for that incident that had happened soon after his rebound hit Midoriya. He still coughs up blood after all these years. "Rebounds are different." Izuku continued, "Really, my fever went down already and I'll go straight back to sleep after seeing you off." Katsuki furrowed his brow. He began pushing the youngster back inside the house, saying, "Get back in, you'll distract my concentration." Izuku laughed. "Do I truly worry you that much, Kaken? Is that so?" He thought to himself, but apparently Katsuki could read his thoughts. A yelp was heard as Katsuki chopped the smaller boy in the head. Izuku spun around, wondering why she had done it. Katsuki let out a sigh. "Let me focus. I'm not letting you go to UA alone." He murmured, "All the hero shit aside, you're gonna fucking die if I leave you alone for 3 minutes, much less 3 years. Essentially, stop worrying me, stay the fuck still, and don't make me anxious about your well-being while I'm trying to take an exam." Izuku laughed. He constantly enjoyed making assumptions about Katsuki's thoughts and guessing what she was thinking, even though there was no concrete evidence to support Izuku's theory that Katsuki was hallucinating. "Thanks for keeping me alive, Kaken. You're doing a great job." Irritated by the insignificantly ironic comment, Katsuki cried, "Get back in bed." And added, "And don't you dare even step out of your bed until you've counted to 1,000,000,000. "Yes, Mom." It was Bakugou Katsuki who was at UA Academy taking his entrance exam. "Hey." Mom was shopping for groceries when she went out. They would both return in the late afternoon. "Izuku had a fantastic idea, and this is the ideal opportunity for me to sneak away by myself. It seems like a lifetime ago." Thus, Midoriya Izuku got out of bed. He reached to his bedside and took out the unopened letter from UA. He had held off on opening it till Katsuki had received his as he had received it a day earlier. Anyway, he already knew the outcome. All he needed to do was finish reading through the formalities and must-dos. Izuku got out of his pajamas. After gathering his belongings and meds, he made his way downstairs. He was probably alright because he didn't feel too ill and his fever had already significantly decreased. Quietly as possible, he put on his shoes and exited the home. He was certain of his destination. The beach is a location he has long adored and longing to explore. With 90% of it being rubbish, it hardly qualified as a beach, but that was the whole idea. Trash. The word junk can also mean free supplies. This junkyard hides the love and dreams of an innovator. After telling Katsuki this, they got into an argument over how harmful and dangerous it is for someone with his weakened immune system to stay around. As a result, he hadn't been able to come within 10 meters of the beach's entrance for the previous few years. Kaken, I hate you. 3 is when Kaken's exam is supposed to end and it will take an hour or so to come back. He set his watch to 3 o'clock, knowing that his mother would be back about that time as well. He had 4 hours at his disposal. That is more than enough. This is a flashback to something that happened years ago, before Izuku took the entrance exam for the UA. Izuku turned on the customized radio by pushing the button. A soft tone emanated from the damaged speaker. The radio began to vibrate like a motor as soon as he pressed the second button, causing the hum to become a loud buzzing sound. It stopped at the third button. He exclaimed, "Great. It's working." Feeling content, he turned to a gap in the debris piles. A stack of nails and the metal plating of an automobile's front hood were set out. Izuku and the radio were around 5 meters away from the item. Izuku's greatest control range is 5 meters. If I succeed, he thought to himself, the special sound waves would spread electromagnetic particles into the air, creating a makeshift magnetic field and make it easier for me to control metal objects. Now let's get started. He put out his hand in that direction, breathing deeply and closing his eyes. Opening his eyes, he directed his focus and made the items move. In a minute, all 20 of the nails had lifted, 2 by 2. The metal plate made a small rusting sound as it rolled around, unable to separate from the stone it rested on. Izuku felt the migraine coming on when he forced it an inch above the stone. He turned the radio's first button on. He was delighted when the low buzzing stopped and the metal plating lifted. Now that he was exerting less effort, his migraine subsided somewhat. He raised both items 1 meter above the floor. He grinned. He succeeded. However, that was just the start. He rearranged the items. He made what resembled a tiny tornado by whirling the nails in circles and then increased its speed. Unstably, the metal plate shook as he struggled to keep it afloat. In order to complete 2 tasks at once, he also rotated the metal plate in the other direction. He momentarily lost focus, causing the 2 items to freeze momentarily before they fell to the ground like string-cut mannequins. He collapsed to his knees, unable to breathe. After switching off the radio, he sat down properly. That was quite challenging. Far more difficult than he had anticipated. He clenched his eyes and waited for the migraine to go away as soon as it struck. He started to taste iron in his mouth and coughed. He put his hands over his lips and waited for it to stop. To his relief, his coughing quickly ceased and he reached for the handkerchief in his bag. "You okay, boy?" The voice caused Izuku to wince. He spun around and saw an older man with blonde hair who appeared as skinny as a skeleton. He hastily got up, wiping his hands and then his mouth. "Oh. Yeah, I'm alright," he exclaimed, forcing a smile. "How long were you there?" he asked. "The whole time," the man stated. "That's an interesting thing you made there. Training your quirk." Izuku started to perspire. Was he present the entire time? "I was blind to it, didn't I?" In any case, he gave a nod. With a shy smile, he replied, "Yeah. I'm not getting anywhere, though." "What about you, old man? What are you doing here?" the man asked, seeming a little insulted, "Old." And then grinned lovingly as a parent might. "You can call me Yagi." He continued, "As for why I'm here, I come by here often." "Oh, is this your home? Or like, your territory?" "I apologize, I must have intruded." Izuku realized and hastily stood up, fearing he might have offended someone severely. Perhaps, after all, he ought not to have gone into the junkyard. No, Yagi said, nudging the youngster to return to his seat. Then he changed the topic, saying, "This junkyard is a free place. What's your name, boy?" The boy answered, "Me. I'm Izuku." Well, he thought, Yagi-san is an older man, so perhaps he could ask, "Hey, Yagi-san, do you know any way to strengthen your own quirk? Or something that doesn't involve arduous, life-risking training?" Yagi suppressed a frown. "Is there a method to get stronger without using physical force, like this child asked?" He had resorted to inventing things in order to artificially bolster his peculiarity. Apart from everything else, that was just extremely strange. Yagi sounded worried, remembering how the youngster had been hacking up blood just moments before. "Why are you desperate to get stronger, Izuku, my boy? Why do you want to know that?" Yagi asked. Izuku shocked the man by saying, "I want to be useful. I can't become a hero, so I have to be strong enough not to be a burden." "You can't?" Yagi was able to ask. Izuku gave a nod. "I can't become a hero," he said, "something happened a few years ago and my quirk is no longer suitable for combat or rescue or anything physical related in general." He clarified, all it can do now is assist me in picking up small tools and components. Yagi was dumbfounded. It resembled his own peculiarity a lot. He was no longer able to employ one for all for as long as he could after an incident. He was eroding slowly, and before long he would be reduced to the mere form of a scared little skeleton. Though still young, this youngster had already outgrown the ability to explore the boundaries of his eccentricity. It was a tragic end. Yagi stated seriously, I'm so sorry to say this, but that would be difficult. I see. A saddened Izuku bowed his head. Yagi was feeling bad now. However, he had to correct this small error. After all, he shouldn't dash dreams. Even if it may be impossible for yourself, there are things you can do for other people's quirks. That's right, you should become a support hero. Not a hero who works on pitch, but a supporter that helps out behind the scenes. He laughed. He muttered, support hero. Thus, there were also heroes who focused on the backstage area. So instead of focusing on your own quirk, think up of ways to improve other people's quirks. You could also think up ways not to improve, but to applicate what your quirk is as it is. But these simple ways you can save as many lives as the heroes. You have the intellectual potential, after all. Potential? Really? Izuku asked with a smile on his face as his eyes seemed to glitter. He felt a peculiar kind of inspiration and resolve after hearing the man's words. Yagi grinned and said, yes, you do. In UA Academy, this is kin to what they call plus ultra. Wua. Izuku kept shining, but Yagi stopped. I'm in skeleton now, I should have remembered. Resuming the present. Izuku chuckled. He hadn't visited in 4 years, as Katsuki was at school and he was forced to stay at home due to illness. His mother couldn't make it home before the following day, so she was at her parents'. Though later on, when he realized that Izuku had visited the junkyard, Katsuki had raged at him, he had still loved the experience. Izuku had adopted the goal of becoming a support hero, primarily because of Yagi-san. He laughed and said, I wonder what Yagi-san is doing now. As he watched Izuku stroll next to his blonde companion. He also let out a small cough. Katsuki remarked, a bit smugly, you alright? Izuku answered, it's nothing. Calling bullshit in 3, 2 Izuku corrected swiftly, there's no blood. I feel terrific, my head doesn't hurt and my temperature is okay. Tutted Katsuki, damn it. As they entered the school, Izuku started a brief talk about how happy he was, to which Katsuki responded with a single word. As they entered the building, they sought out where their lessons were being held. Katsuki whispered, a class is in the other direction. H is over there. You can get there by yourself. Izuku gave a nod. I'm not a kid. Handkerchief? The man inquired. Are you really doing this again? Izuku asked, pausing as Katsuki gave him a menacing glance. Yes. Medicine? Asks Katsuki again. Yes. Izuku has formally abandoned his attempt to disobey mommy Katsuki. And when exactly do you eat it? After my meal. Then. I go to the infirmary for the rest of break. Yes, Katsuki replied with a hint of cynicism, and yes, in fact, you may leave now, appearing a little relieved that Izuku probably wouldn't die today. Izuku chuckles and turns to face his classroom, saying, yes, mom. But the final turn around, he waved and said, see you Kakin. The boy with blonde hair yelled, go already. Izuku approaches 1H's entryway and is astounded by how big the door is. Huge. Is it because of anyone that has a size quirk? He was wondering. Still, he inhales deeply, fakes an anxious smile, and walks into class. Many individuals were inside already. The small number of chairs in the classroom, 15 to 20 at most, was most likely caused by the small number of employees in the support department. Izuku noticed a specific female with pink hair at a specific table, tinkering with a specific device. He approaches and says, Hatsume-san, good morning. We're in the same class. Good morning. She exclaims, acknowledging his presence. Midoriya. What's that? Hatsume said, I made it on the way to school. It's an engine. How on earth are you so crazy into high-tech? Midoriya murmurs, can a normal person make an engine out of trash and junk? Of course. Junk are treasures waiting to be discovered. The two enjoyed a spirited discussion during which they discussed inventions and got to know one another better. Their peers gave them looks of curiosity or mockery, but none really approached the two closely. Any new arrival, in their opinion, would break their connection and cause the conversation to stop abruptly. However, they had to stop when the teacher entered the room. They had all met her at the entrance exam, where she was the 18 and over hero Midnight, so they knew who she was. Having not yet gotten the seating map, everyone hurried off to an undetermined seat. She smiled, greetings, everyone. She continued to carry the whip and wear the skimpy attire, but nobody questioned her during the exam period, so they didn't inquire today. As you all know, I am a pro hero, Midnight. You shall refer to me as Midnight Sensei, and I have been assigned to your class as homeroom teacher. Today is just the first day, let's go with the super cliché introductions first. She pointed to the young man in the left-hand corner, starting from you, please. Name, quirk, and reason for joining UA. After a moment of confusion, the child got to his feet. His expression was stoic and indifferent as he sat down right away. My name is Kyoku, and I don't have a last name. My quirk is called propagation, and basically I can multiply things. I joined UA because, money, I guess. Behind him, a girl got to her feet. Her bright smile never wavered, like that of a small child. I'm Nijishima Haru. She exclaimed with excitement. My quirk is called spring cleaning, and I can make anything look as good as new. I joined UA because heroes are cool. The contrast is hilarious, Izuku noticed a chuckle. Hatsume, being the confident Hatsume that she was, got up and said, I'm Hatsume, and my quirk is Zoom. I joined UA because I wanted to show off my babies to the world. Someone yelled out, babies. Hatsume simply smiled, unperturbed. An inventor's creations are an inventor's children. They got up one by one to introduce themselves. Eventually, Izuku's turn came. There were happy ones, nervous ones, serious ones, and bored ones. He felt uneasy. Regardless of how many times he had done it previously, he was always anxious while making an introduction in class. The cough cut off his statement, I'm Midoriya Izuku. My quirk is magnet, and I joined because Izuku felt blood rise from his throat and gasped at the anguish that surged up. Blood spurted out of the corners of his mouth as he coughed into his fist. Izuku sensed that everyone was staring at him, and silence fell. He tried, I'm okay. The first person to panic in front of Izuku exclaimed, there's blood. He's gonna die. The girl said, tissues. Anyone? Or a handkerchief or a cloth? Hatsume exclaimed, not again. People were running around looking for tissues, looking for anything that would help, and asking if anyone knew what to do, so Izuku's denials that he was okay went unnoticed. Midnight let out a sigh. Her class is gone. Heroes including support heroes were not supposed to react to injuries in this way. However, Midnight continued to watch for a little while longer since she intended to try to believe her new class. Someone exclaimed, oh, my god. With extreme irritation. Shut up. The youngster known as Kyoku was the first in the class to introduce himself, and he furrowed his brows in embarrassment. With haste, he sprang up and approached Izuku, who had taken a handkerchief and held it to his mouth to absorb the blood. Asking Izuku to open his mouth, he cupped his chin and withdrew his hand. Izuku did it despite being a little taken aback. Kyoku gives it a quick examination, much like a doctor would. With a sigh, he looks around the class. Nothing critical, but it's gonna inflame. Someone get this moron to recovery girl. Ah. Wait, I'm fine. I'm absolutely okay, yeah, right, Kyoku frowned at him, adding, and fish can make snowmen, pigs can fly, and cats can swim. With a less combative demeanor, he turned back to the class and inquired, someone? Anyone? Or do I have to do it myself? In the awkward pause, one guy simply laughs and says, I'll do it. Izuku also feels as though he has gained the support of another student in his class. He reassured, it's okay, Kyo's never wrong. Ah, and I'm Kai. Nice to meet you. Oh, I'm Midoriya Izuku. As everyone else settled back into their seats, feeling relieved, the two started to leave the classroom. With a hint of pride, Midnight applauded, magnificently done. Looking at Kyoku, Hatsume asked, you an experienced medical or something? She spoke up and said, you spoke pretty confidently. As the two piggyback riders hurry out of class, Kyoku remarks, something like that Kai. Treat that guy like a piece of cracked glass. He'll die if you run too fast. Sorry, well then they're all healed up. Recovery girl replied, you might feel a little tired, so you might want to sleep a little. I've heard about your constitution, young man, and the school is going through lengths to ensure your safety in this school. Izuku gave a nod. He said, thanks, and I really apologize for the trouble. There it is. That's the main cause of 60% of people with a body similar to yours dying earlier than they were supposed to. Recovery girl chided, sometimes, you people should just be silent and accept the help you are given. You people are another valuable part of our society and not just a burden on our shoulders. Some fail to realize that before it's too late. Why yes ma'am. Izuku straightened his back and said, then, with a bashful smile, he bowed while continuing to sit in the chair and thanked the elderly woman. I'm really grateful for it. Recovering girl huffs and puffs, content, reaching for a box on the edge of the desk. When she opened it, she found a black ring-shaped contraption packed full of styrofoam. Relatively large, perhaps a choker or bracelet, she removed it from its wrapping and gave it to Izuku. She said, take it, young man. Izuku looked over the apparatus. It appeared to be constructed of a glossy, high-tech substance. A certain kind of metal. It was most likely made of a combination of plastic, metal, and other materials because it was so light and didn't appear like it would break into pieces when it fell. That's a choker I would like you to wear at all times. Recovery girl clarified, I understand that your system is gradually weakening as much as you use your quirk. Your mother has expressed her feelings about this, and this school is willing to provide you with the medical surveillance you need during your education. Izuku reddened. He was aware that his mom went on many grocery trips. She had come all the way to UA by herself and used a reason to ask for her child's medical assistance. He will always be a mommy's boy. That choker will constantly monitor your location, heart rate, temperatures and various bodily functions and will detect any abnormalities. It will send the information as an alarm to me and I will rush over if anything occurs. Izuku gave a nod. That sounded really awesome. Additionally, Kaken might not be as concerned about his everyday health status now. Unexpectedly, the choker fit perfectly around Izuku's neck. He then pressed a button he discovered near the buckle. Yes, I am checking the levels of bodily functioning at the moment. The abrupt sound made Izuku jump. That startled me. Current condition is stable. Recovery girl remarked, well, I guess it's working fine. I'll need you to wear this at all times. She continued, if for some reason I stop getting information from it, I'll assume you're in critical condition and send an ambulance to you right away. Well, how about taking a bath or anything else? No. Okay. Izuku fiddled around with the choker a little, adjusting it, he'll have to get used to wearing it from now on. After that, he walked back into class, walking into what appeared to be everyone getting to know each other and forming their own groups, some of them sleeping, but as soon as he walked in, everyone's attention turned to Izuku and he froze in place. He's never going to get used to this and he's returned. Did you really go there or did you run out? A girl asked. Though back if the latter is the case, she exuded a severe mother's worry, an older sister's excessive fear for her child or siblings. Having seen that before, Izuku simply laughs, saying, no, recovery girl said, I could come back. Hey Kai, the boy who had brought Izuku to the clinic, waved casually and grinned, looks like you're feeling better. What? Yes. I'm sorry if I worried anyone, he replied, stroking his cheek, and thanks for carrying me to the infirmary. Midoriya Hatsune rushes towards him and checks if Izuku has any wounds on his body. No Hatsune-san, I did not go fight in war, it was just a walk to the infirmary and back, she says, glancing at the medical choker with suspicion, but brushing it aside. Izuku decided to change the topic and adds, Hatsune-san, I'm alright. Sweating, he says, how's your engine? Ah. I've completed it already. Later, I'll show you how to divert an easily distracted girl. 101, she smiles. Are you truly okay now, man? You scared the hell out of us. Exclaimed someone. I said to him. Yes, you did. Suddenly start spitting blood. A boy nodded in agreement, saying, next time, warn us or anything. Izuku laughed awkwardly. Don't worry, it happens all the time. I'm accustomed to it now. He said, it doesn't normally happen in the middle of speaking, but I have a really weak body. I was simply experiencing some anxiety. Wow, he's a sad case. You're going to give us this kind of heart attack every single year? A girl looked like she was going to cry as she complained, my mentality won't keep up. Can't we grow accustomed to it in class? A girl who was eating potato chips said. A guy moaned, don't think I can get used to a crimson water geyser. I agree. An abruptly formal statement interrupted, as classmates, I believe we should really look after this guy in case he suddenly dies. How about we set up a schedule for Midoriya duties so that someone is always available to take care of him. Izuku steps past a familiar boy, Kyoku, who was staring out into space to his left, dismissing the weird statements and trying not to think much of them before making his way to his seat. Oh, Izuku remarked, bowing, I'm Midoriya. Thank you for before. Kyoku turns to face Izuku and says, yeah, I heard. Are you okay now? Hello, I'm Kyoku, he responds, his tone neither overtly friendly nor antagonistic. Yes. I'm doing fine. Izuku grinned, it's nice to meet you. He somehow reminds me of Kaken. A girl seated in front of Izuku quivered with delight, saying, Mito-chan. My name is Haru. I hope we get along. She extends her greeting. Me too. Smiled Izuku in return. I've never heard somebody refer to me as Mito-chan before, so that must be a first. Please let me know if you're feeling under the weather. Oh no. Regards. A boy to his right said, I'm Nagomi, by the way. Looking forward to the year ahead, Midoriya. Holding a book, he turned over casually for a quick hello before turning back. Ah. Yes, Izuku replied. This was his new class. And my baby, this hoverboard I upgraded for you during the exam is so much lighter, so much more sturdy, and I figured out how to make it more balanced. Hatsune-san, that is fantastic. Bakugou Katsuki looked up at the familiar voice. He had been eating so much that he was really hungry after that pointless physical test. Despite the extreme crowding, he could clearly hear the voice. Izuku's lungs don't do well in crowds, so he lifted his head and gazed around, softly noting, oh, it's DEKU. If memory served him correctly, he was looking for the green-haired lad in this crowd. And that's where Katsuki discovered Midoriya Izuku, engaging in animated and noisy conversation with a girl with pink hair. Izuku would periodically smile and respond briefly before the girl would interrupt once more. Katsuki tuts. He swallows the last of his juice in one gulp and moves over, chucking the empty carton in the trash as he goes. It took him about 10 steps to get there, he probably bumped into a few people who said sorry, but whatever, and he stopped right in front of the 2 students from the support course who are equally tall. What Kaken Izuku notices him and is a little taken aback. Oh, Hatsum hesitated, not very happy to be disturbed, but Izuku, momentarily surprised, falls forward, is stabilized by Katsuki's arm, and ends up behind him. Turning around, he sees Katsuki glaring at Hatsum. Katsuki grabs Deku by the arm and pulls him forward. Who are you, being extremely direct and action-oriented, akin to Bakugou. Izuku immediately became aware of his friend's animosity and said, "Ah wait, Kaken, she's Deku, shush." He gave the green-haired female a short growl before turning to face the girl again. Hatsume from the support course is who I am. Despite the menacing gaze she was getting, she smiled and said, "Who are you, rude guy?" Katsuki was irritated even though she probably didn't mean any damage. "I'm taking this wimp with me," he complained, grabbing Izuku's arm and tugging him away. "Deku, get over here." "Ah, Kaken, hold on." With a frustrated smirk on her face, Hatsume took Katsuki by the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, but I was talking to him first. And he seems to object to your rough handling, so could you? How the hell are you aware of Deku?" Katsuki angrily yelled, "Leave him alone." "My line is that," Hatsume snapped back, "so who are you, anyway?" As Izuku stood to the side, she started to get anxious. "Oh no, I've started them fighting. I gotta stop this, but how will I interrupt them, Kaken? I don't think they'll hear me," she thought. The 2 came to a sudden stop and shook their heads. Yes, it did indeed work. Izuku laughed and used his handkerchief to wipe his mouth. "Hatsume-san, this is Kaken, and we are in the same support class." He made the decision to intervene while he still had the chance. "And Hatsume-san, this is Bakugou Katsuki. She helped me through the entrance exam and he's on the hero course and has a really cool quirk. He has been looking after me since I was little and is a friend from my youth. Since this is our first year in separate classes, I can understand why he might be a little concerned. Anyone worries? Oh my. A buddy from my youth." Hatsume was taken aback, sarcasm in her voice, but she seemed to have come to terms with the situation and was seeing it with more humor. "I'd think such a guy would be a stalker or something," Hatsume said. "Suddenly, you're merely your boyfriend's overly protective overprotector, unwilling to let your darling go anytime soon." "Bitch, what the fuck you say?" Friend Izuku asks, but in general, yes. Deku superhero training. "How fascinating," Hatsume remarks, "you appear to be a villain more than anything." "Bitch, what the fuck you say?" Izuku pulls at his childhood friend's shirt, attempting in vain to calm them down again. "Kaken, you already used that line. And I really owe a lot to Hatsume-san, so could you get along for my sake?" Nakatsuki lashes out, "And hell. She's not even healthy enough for me to be around. There are already enough risks in this world. But Kaken, I survived you." Izuku responds, "Another talkative person won't hurt me. Do you want me to give you a punch, Deku?" "Jaya." "Hey," Hatsume interrupts, "that right there is assault. Are you unaware of this poor boy's fragility? I think you're the one he should stay away from." She chastises Katsuki. "You stop talking. I knew something went wrong during the entrance exam when he actually came home with a fever," Katsuki snaps. "He had a fever when he got home," Hatsume cried out in terror. "Midoriya, you forgot to inform me. You did something, that's for sure." "Wait, no, Kaken, I was just too nervous throughout the whole day that time, but Midoriya is a classmate of mine. I'm entitled to spend time with him." The reply from Hatsume is, "You're not in his class. Give up praising him. Am I the one pampering him, or are you?" Izuku glanced at the clock and said, "In my opinion, both of you." "Unheard," he said, "Oh, it's about time to eat my medicine." The 2 said, "Sit down." Without delay, they both gave orders, with Katsuki pushing him into a chair. "I'm going to fetch some water." Hatsume hurried away. Izuku thinks to himself in silence, "Wow, maybe I should do this every time." He quickly gulped his medication when the water came and huffed when he was finished. "Many thanks," he grinned. The 2 continued to look at one another like a dog and a cat, but they put up with it and turned to face Izuku. Hatsume smiled back, saying, "You're welcome," and Katsuki sat down across the table. Hatsume then slipped in next to Izuku. When Katsuki sees the new device around Izuku's neck, she asks, "What's that thing?" "Whoa, I should have asked." Hatsume recalls it as well. "You obtained it from the hospital, correct?" Izuku nods. "I got that from Recovery Girl." He said, "I'm not allowed to take it off. It monitors my condition and sends data back to her." "Well, that calms me down." Hatsume exhales with relief. "From now on, emergency medical care will arrive at your location promptly." Is that the purpose of Inko's visit here? Katsuki muttered. Wait, Kaken, did you know my mother visited here? Izuku was taken aback. You're the only one that didn't. Kaken, the blonde pretended not to hear and picked up his pace, walking a good distance ahead of Izuku while cursing under his breath in frustration. Kaken. Instead, his complaints became more vehement as he concentrated on the route back to their community. Await the ack. The blonde stopped at that, turning to see the black-haired boy face down on the floor, as if he had slipped and fallen. The boy slowly got up and whimpered, ow, ow. Izuku's fringe are brushed away by Katsuki, who makes him reveal his palms and other parts of his body as he looks for any injuries. Tetsuya rolled his eyes and moaned, taking an enraged stride forward and crouching down before the youngster. Izuku interrupts, hey, Kaken, and Katsuki glances up expectantly, giving him a special grin. Even after everything, you still worry, huh? Izuku says, meeting Katsuki's questioning gaze. I'm not worried. Tuts Katsuki, jabbing the lad in the forehead. Sometimes you just terrify the living hell out of somebody. I apologize for frightening you, Kaken. Izuku laughs. I'm not afraid. Was the terse reply. So what happens next? Izuku asks, cocking his head to the side. With no more words, Katsuki gives a furious grunt, gets back up, turns around, and leaves again. Oh, hold on. Kaken. Izuku stands up fast and asks, are you still upset at Hatsume-san? Katsuki twitches at the name, furious. Don't bring her up, he exclaims, and you. Please stay away from her, I don't like her. Have you overlooked this? The girl who teased me, the girl who screamed at me because she thought I was cute but you were only interested in me, and the girl who I'm not sure why spilled ice cream all over my shirt. It's a significant issue. We're in separate classes. Katsuki chastises. I have less time to spend with you now. If something happens while I'm not looking at you, what in the world can I do? But Hatsume-san's a nice person. You have too much faith. As soon as I take you out of my sight, everyone takes advantage of you. Remember the time you nearly got kidnapped because you thought that vehicle contained candy? Kaken, I was 6 years old and like Izuku glances away, blushing intensely, let me have some friends at least. Katsuki lets out a sound that sounds like a combination of agonizing screaming and irritated grabbing. Please, just no, he cries, can't you just listen? I'm trying to protect you here. Hold on. Hey, Kaken, he says, I've been thinking, but. Do you feel envious? Nah. Aim the instant denial, hell fucking no. Katsuki let out a scream. And Izuku had the happiest guy alive on his face. Katsuki, unable to take this any longer, stomps away, turning away without looking back, a blush spreading across his face. Yes, you tsundere, Captain. Izuku was an awkward youngster. Therefore, he knew he had a cold the moment he woke up sneezing, his arms chilly, and his head clouded from forgetting to cover himself entirely with a blanket before going to sleep. He blows his nose, scrunching it up in annoyance at the thought that if anyone found out, he would have to miss school today. However, today marked the official commencement of the second day of sessions. It all dissolved into a mild temperature and scratchy throat after that initial sniffle, which was thankfully not his nose running. Izuku never wanted to think about his illnesses or be concerned about them. He puts on a smile, changes into his school uniform, and leaves the house. He has a slight temperature and a sore throat, but other than that, he's fine. He needs to trick Kaken on the way to school. And he was well versed in deceiving Kaken. Come on, Kaken. He moves about on an odd homemade hoverboard that he constructed only the day before. Izuku utilized hard plastic and tiny metals to fix the 3 magnets at a predetermined location. He just needed to move one magnet to move the other 2, which were attracted to each other and repulsed by the other. The 3 magnets were arranged at an angle that caused the other 2 to lift into the air. Something he thought of at the entrance exam when he saw Hatsume's hoverboard. Hi. Hold on, don't use your quirk so much. Katsuki cries, sprinting after the boy who is gliding around at the pace of a bicycle. Kaken, this much is alright. No, it's not. Get down on it. Nevertheless, Izuku happily leads Kaken on a chicken run all the way to school, with the latter panting considerably at the end. They were fortunate that DEKU was not apprehended for using quirks without permission, as he had avoided those roads. DEKU, not at all. The first thing he yelled was, but it's too late, he laughed, lowering himself to the ground and scratching the back of his head. We're already at school. If you do that again, I'll blow you away. Kei. I mean it. Izuku, who had just arrived in class with 5 minutes remaining until homeroom, groaned, having finally left the lecture on how he should quit trying to kill himself. Yeah, I know. Not only did his fever worsen, but he also felt like he had a lump on his head from Katsuki hitting him before reprimanding him. He said, morning. To the class. Good morning, you look dejected, said the next person who returned the greeting. What happened? Is your partner causing you problems? Jokingly, Hatsune said, I see you have your hover magnets ready. Friend. A girl lets out a scream, you have a boyfriend. Whom? Not a boyfriend, Hatsumi-san. He breathes deeply, he's just my childhood friend. Nagomi, who sits next to Izuku in class, interjects, Midori-san, that's the one line in the world that traps 80% of the population in an eternal traumatic curse called the Free Ensign. Well, Izuku wants to know what that implies. Moron Kyoku, who also sits next to Izuku in class, scolds Nagomi when he strikes his head. What are you teaching him? A long im from Kai breaks up their chat like a baseball batter receiving safe, on time. With a sardonic clap, Kyoku said, that's the first time in 5 years, congratulations. You are the one that abandoned me, you know I'm never early without you. Was the reply. You lazy ass, I purposely did it. I already have kids at home, I don't need any more large children. But Kyokai interrupted himself, looking at Kyoku for a while, as if he was bewildered before slowly turning to face Midoriya Izuku. But there was a halt in the action, while Kai appeared to be staring blankly at the boy, indicating that Kyoku was just as perplexed by the circumstances as Izuku was. With haste, Kai stands up, approaches Izuku, and strikes them across the foreheads. Izuku gives him a flush, a few people gasp, a girl squeals, and the rest of the class lets out a string of what the s and hiss. A little later, Kai says, yep, it's you. You have a fever. Whether they realized what was going on or not, that sparked the DEKU protection squad into action. It doesn't feel good to be told to go to the infirmary by a group of mother hens, but it's okay. Izuku insisted on walking there by himself, and recovery girl, who no doubt took note of his fever also, no doubt saw him approaching her. He sighed, realizing that the challenges of being a sick human being exist. His head was getting heavier with every step and he couldn't shake the question of why this is his existence. He cleared his throat. Feeling the pain in every cough, he ducked to the side of the road and hacked and spat out blood, stopping after what seemed like an age and struggling to collect his breath. He complained to himself, that one hurt and I forgot my handkerchief. I was going to the infirmary and I didn't think he'd need it. His head was pounding, maybe he shouldn't have gone to school at all, maybe he shouldn't have been so adamant about it. Blood was all over his mouth now and he surely couldn't go the rest of the way this way. Kaken would be so mad to hear this, man. The sequence of gasps reaches his ears and he turns to see 2 horrified faces staring at him with fearful expressions. A tall boy wearing spectacles and a girl with brown hair and a bob cut. His initial reaction was, oh no, someone saw me. Crystal, the girl cried out in terror, that's blood. Oh my god, Izuku hurriedly interrupts to say something, but the boy who was calling for someone interrupted. This individual. His lips is bleeding profusely, trying not to panic, he yelled, his hand moving robotically to emphasize what he was saying. Wait, but Izuku kept saying the same thing. Someone, please. We need an ambulance, please phone a teacher, the girl cried out once more. Hold on. No, I'm not at all. Izuku panics instead, no. If I make a scene, Kaken will notice, and he did not want to continue his sentence at all. He terrified simply thinking about the implications. This is wondering what he would say, the two turned over. I had tomato juice in my mouth. A brilliant idea struck his mind at the last second. What the hell am I saying briefly crossed his mind, but he had no better plan. I drank too fast and choked. There was quiet for a while. Yes, people naturally call my bluff. It's tomato juice. The girl nods understandingly, oh, I see. Oh, the boy apologizes, sounding skeptic, it appears we misinterpreted, then. Are they really going to believe me? Wow, that was unexpected. The girl breathed out a sigh of relief, scary. The boy said, you must really like tomato juice, huh? Ah. Do you want a tissue please, the young lady proposed. Ah yes, please. Todoki didn't know what to anticipate when he heard coughing, but he most likely didn't anticipate that it would be a boy of that age coughing up blood and appearing to be in pain. What are you doing, he had to inquire. Blood stained his hand and the corners of his mouth, the youngster jumped but was too weak to do much more than look at Todoroki. Todoroki had to bite back a shiver, his face flushed slightly from a fever, and he looked sickly and very pale, all the while maintaining a neutral poker face. I used to be. Sitting away from Todoroki's gaze, the boy murmured, I'm drinking tomato juice. I can see that's not true, Todoroki groaned. Can't you come up with a better lie than that? He asked. Sorry, the lad murmured with an uncomfortable laugh. Could you pretend you never saw me, then? Todoroki maintained a pompous demeanor, but he snapped, that's out of the question. Heroes don't just walk away when they see such a situation. The child chuckled softly. To be very honest, I'm feeling very sick, my fever's very high, my throat burns, and I think I might throw up soon, but this is a normal thing for me, so I just thought, never mind, and here I am. Todoroki stands, horrified by the state of affairs, and grunts. You're going to the infirmary, he says, offering a helping hand. Come on, I'll help you there. Oh, I can make it by myself, I'm helping. Yes. No one was around because classes had already started, but Todoroki swoops down quickly, scoops the youngster up in his arms, and walks away, much to the boy's astonishment, though not that he really minded anyway. Oh my god. At least I can walk by myself. Now the boy reddened and clutched Todoroki's clothing, fearing he would trip and fall. He was too light, too damn light, and for some reason the right size for Todoroki to be carrying him. You look like you can barely keep your eyes open, Todoroki says. But Todoroki turned to courteous words, hoping that the boy would give up, which he did, just for a while, please. With his eyes closed and his weight shifting to Todoroki's chest, the boy's head lowered and loosened. Todoroki thought he should move quickly because it looked like this man was about to pass away. He hurried to go to the hospital as quickly as possible, saying, "It wasn't tomato juice," as if in tears. "Uraraka," Chako whimpers, "you said it was." Iida Tenya comforts the bob-haired girl, now, Uraraka-kun. You shouldn't be so rowdy towards a patient. But she right, he remarked. Please remember to be honest with us the next time you feel ill rather than lying about it. He turned to give Izuku a quick, severe but non-aggressive scolding. Izuku grinned at them and said, "Yes, I apologize for worrying you." It was break now. Recovery girl was upset, saying, "I thought you'd never get here." Todoroki, Izuku had switched names with a while ago, brought him here and he received an IV. But yet provided him with emergency care. Izuku mentioned Uraraka and Iida before he left for class, so it appeared that Todoroki had also told them about it. I didn't think 3 people from Wano could chance upon me all at once. Izuku acknowledges, and you're all in Kaken's class too. Kaken. Izuku was not looking forward to confronting explosive boy, by the way. "DEKU, you dull one," a voice echoed along the corridor. "Uraraka-san, hello. Iida-san. Act as if I'm not present." There was no recovery girl to scold him for taking out the needle, he says, ripping out his IV and hiding beneath the bed. "Hey, why? Cease." Bakugou Katsuki forcefully opens the door. "Oh my. Hold it in. It's an infirmary here," arrived Iida. Katsuki moaned, "Robot brain and angel face, what the fuck are you doing here?" Uraraka, perceiving the situation abruptly, says, "It appears that recovery girl is not present. We are searching for her. TCH. Whatever." He grumbled under his breath and decides to turn away from them. "Deku. I know you're in here. As I previously stated, kindly behave appropriately in an infirmary." Iida expresses dissatisfaction. Pulling the covers aside, Katsuki finds no one on the bed and squats down to peer beneath it. Iida and Uraraka wince. "Greetings, Izuku-kun. How's the weather down there?" With an unbearably sweet, "I will fucking kill you" smile, he asks. Izuku answers in a shy, uneasy tone, "I'm not sure, but there's a storm outside, so I thought I'd get under some shade." With a scowl, Katsuki turns to face Uraraka and Iida, who, terrified of Bakugou, slowly retreat from the hospital. After all, when it's Bakugou, what could possibly go wrong? "So, since this morning, you've been feeling ill?" With a more contented look on his face, Katsuki chose a more cozy seating arrangement. Izuku was a wreck, saying, "Why yeah. And you continue to attend classes?" The dread in his friend's voice didn't stop Katsuki from carrying on with his interrogation. Izuku murmurs, "I thought I'd be fine. I also didn't want to skip school." A pause occurred. Katsuki could take no more of this nonsense. "Get out here, Deku, I will fucking why in the world do you always do stupid crap like this? Only if you swear not to break me will I come out. Go now, for heaven's sake." "Hi Midoriya. How are you?" As Hatsune went into the hospital to see Izuku, he called. Izuku appeared to be traumatized. "How did it go, Midoriya?" She stormed over, asking sharply, "Were you attacked?" "Kaken was just really mad," Izuku said, forcing his lips to curl upward. "And then recovery girl got mad at me because I tore out the IV. That person once more." Hatsune settles into a chair next to Izuku and says, "You know, I can hit him for you. No one treats an injured boy worse than him." Izuku laughs and says, "No, it's okay. Kaken may act that way, but that's just how he expresses himself. In reality, he's just worried. Perhaps afraid that I'll rebound once more." Even though it was annoying, Hatsune was secretly relieved that the spark also existed when he spoke to Izuku, because Izuku always seemed to have that glitter in his eyes when he talked about Bakugou Katsuki. "I still don't like him, though. You belong to everyone, Midoriya, even though he's trying to take you for himself, of course. Most importantly, you belong to yourself," she stated while holding his hand. "You're unwell, but that's not your fault. Hatsune-san. I am. Everyone is concerned about you, not just him. It's likely that everyone is as concerned as he is. We all do, even though maybe not as deeply as Bomber Boy." Izuku laughs quietly to himself. He wanted to cry, but he felt too blessed and too useless. He was a being that needed to be safeguarded, and he had come to terms with the fact that there was no other option. He was an inconvenience. His smile returned to his face. "Yeah. Hatsune-san, I'm happy to have all of you." We're all glad to have you as well, Midoriya smiles back at Hatsume. Upon his return, he was greeted with a Midoriya, welcome back. He had made it back for afternoon sessions, and he was relieved to see that everyone was grinning. Ah, Midoriya present Mick was now instructing English, saying, hello again, heard you stir up some trouble for sweet old recovery girl. He said with a dramatic greeting. Regarding that, Izuku nervously laughed, I apologize. He then grinned and said, I'm back. Many thanks to all of you. Nagomi, please assist Midoriya in catching up on everything. Wouldn't want him to fall behind in his schoolwork, present Mick remarked. Yes, I do have notes. Ask me anything you don't know. Nagomi says, passing Izuku a book. I doubt it'll be much help, though, he said. I'm a moron. How does that operate? Izuku inquires as he takes a seat. Alright, present Mick announces, let's get back to the lesson now that everyone is here, all of you are welcome once more, Midnight Sensei says, how are you all doing? Fantastic. One person responded. What about you, Sensei? A boy said, Midnight Sensei, you're chippy as always. I need to go back to sleep, I'm exhausted. Kyoku grunts. A bright day begins with a bright mood. Midnight Sensei gives the order, happiness, everybody. As you can see, I'm doing fantastically. And awaken, Kyoku, she gestured to the boy. A string of chuckles swept through the classroom. Another sunny day, another glittering morning that, fortunately, isn't too dazzling for Midoriya Izuku, who grinned as the students continued to make sarcastic remarks about one another, generating a lively mood. This is a little late, but I'll want to use today's homeroom to pick our class presidents. Most people became animated and raised their hands in a me gesture. Here I'd like to try it. In contrast, the minority was made up of uninspired individuals who were either too shy to begin bouncing around or who were blatantly uninterested in the job. Izuku looked at his table hesitantly and raised a hand, but no one noticed that Kyoku had already gone back to sleep. Hatsume and Nagomi, on the other hand, raised both hands and said, me. I am going to do it. Relax, everyone. The rioting monkeys were instantly subdued by Midnight Sensei's comments. Let's be fair and go for a voting, okay? The students swooned over their tempting, beautiful babe of a teacher, despite the carnal motivations behind her seductions, as she shot them a dazzling smile. Yes, madam, X, and the outcome in the end was. Kyoku was so furious that you could hardly call it fury anymore. He gazed at every corner of the room like the devil's offspring, his visage dark and angry. Whoever voted for me, kill yourselves. The girl representative bowed and said, once again, my name is Mikazuki Katsumi. She was a stony girl, with mostly unreadable facial expressions, and she said, thanks for voting for me. In a calm, quiet voice. And so, Midnight cuts in, these two will now represent your class. The students cheered. Kyoku-san, I think you'll be an excellent president. Izuku does everything in his power to comfort the boy who was eating in a rage. Without responding, Kyoku ate and swallowed ferociously, taking a long swig of his juice before he finally decided to breathe. Extremely gustatory. Perfect, Hatsume chuckled, just what I'd want the president of my class to be. She made a jest. You. Kyoku glared at her. Well, to tell the truth, I cast my own vote. I don't know who the 5 votes were that reached you. Hatsume casually shook her hand. Izuku, was that you then? Kyoku gave a growl. A pause occurred. Kyoku gave me the most terrifying look when he said, you're one of them, aren't you? Hold on. I'll explain. Izuku throws his hands up at his face in pathetic attempt to defend himself, also he was cut off by the deafening cry of a siren. A breach of security level 3 has occurred. Kindly leave the area as soon as possible. Level 3 security, Hatsume inquired. There was a flurry of activity as people immediately got up from their seats, turned away from their food, and ran to the cafeteria's departure area. What is going on? Kyoku asked, raising his voice. You folks also show up. In response, an upperclassman said, it indicates that there has been infiltration. The 3 got to their feet at that point. Oh no, Hatsume gasped, is it possible for these things to occur in UA? Taking Izuku by the hand, Kyoku said, I've heard it happen before, but that was years ago. As they made their way out the door. Ah, Kyoku-san, hold on. Izuku raised his voice. He didn't have to go on because they could all see what was wrong. The abrupt alert set off a mass panic at the cafeteria's exit, causing people to huddle together in an incredibly stifling struggle, shouts and yells to go unanswered, and no one to be able to move forward with their escape. Kyoku muttered, I guess we can't come this way. Let's go. And dragged Izuku in the opposite direction. Where are we heading? Hatsume, trailing behind, inquired. The fact that these two were acting much too coolly in this scenario made Izuku uneasy. After all, UA is being invaded. A hero academy. That could imply villains, and Izuku let out a sigh. After that, they went to class, where one girl settled into her seat and began reading a novel while munching on a potato chip. Oh, Katsumi. Kyoku released Izuku and approached the female class representative, saying, won't you just run away? Kitsumi looked up, registering his identification for a minute before shaking her head and said, "I'm not a good runner, so I decided that staying in place would be preferable." "You?" "I thought we would be able to get away with my babies," Hatsune intervened, saying, "Well, that was Kyoku's plan anyhow." "Are you coming?" Kyoku proposed. "I am able to," she asked, her expression remaining unchanged despite appearing astonished. "Yes, you certainly can." Izuku grinned endearingly. For a split second, she appeared to notice something, though it was difficult to tell because of her emotionlessness. She said to them, "Never mind." "What? What is meant by that?" was a perplexing query from Kyoku. As soon as the question was answered, individuals started to reassemble in front of the classrooms, they spoke more casually and moved more formally, as though they were no longer in danger. Kitsumi muttered, "False alarm. Okay, I see. What kind of an ending is this?" Support heroes can function in a variety of ways. The majority concentrate on creating tools and the like to aid professional heroes fill in their shortfalls and adjust to changing battlefield conditions. However, some heroes operate a little differently. For instance, Kyoku places more emphasis on his skill set from being the eldest of 8 children, plus 1 animal, and his observational experience. While he is not well versed in medicine, he finds small ways to keep people's health in a positive state. There's also the technological aspect of him, but that's a topic for another day. This is what transpired today. Troublesome situations don't exactly appeal to Kyoku. He's bored of everyone in the world, and his failing grades don't make things any better. He swears to God he despises children, but he's had a restless night since his younger brother Iruku was crying like a baby until daybreak, and nothing Kyoku tried could stop the little screamer. "Why did I accept another family of brats?" "Hello, Kyoku-san," happily, was the greeting from one Midoriya Izuku. He cheers up the atmosphere around him and smiles like a child every day. Kyoku mumbles, "Mourn," and settles back to sleep at his desk. "A long evening?" Izuku queries. "SHH," Kai's voice said, "he's contemplating his life choices and regretting every decision he's made." "You mind reading, asshole, stop talking." "They're so cruel," Kai complains, "you know my quirk isn't mind reading." What was Izuku's perplexed unanswered question? As Kyoku tried to get some rest during the remaining pre-homeroom hours, there was background noise and individuals not talking to him, but one loud voice stood out amid the walla. "Kai. That is very adorable, the voice of a girl. How did you find that?" "My quirk kinda attracts small ones like these." A young lady says, "I didn't notice it in my bag." Kyoku looks up. A large portion of the class was gathered around a girl near the entryway, and upon closer inspection, she carried a small newborn chick in her palm and caressed it tenderly while chuckling a little. That audience included Izuku as well, who was amazed by the small object and seemed to relish the attention. The students who remained seated grinned at the throng and the tranquility of daily existence. Kyoku had always known that Midoriya Izuku was a little weaker than the rest, based on the way he moved, smiled, and behaved, all telltale marks of having studied before. And because he was naturally inclined to be the bigger brother and loved kids, he had a soft spot for the lad with the frizzed-out hair. Kyoku chooses to approach the throng while still dozing off. "Oh, Kyoku-san, good morning," someone said. "Hello." He greets back, "Good morning. May I touch that?" Somewhat surprisingly, he asks. Well, the girl grinned, "Yes." Kyoku leans out to touch it, running his palm over its silky fur before taking it away. With his fingers interlocked, he clasped his palms together and opened it to reveal another newborn chick. "Whoa. One more. How adorable. Is it yours to have?" With his hands extended and palms facing upwards, Kyoku released a plethora of tiny chicks. "Oh my god. Quit. Kyoku. Little chick heaven is here. Awesome." Kyoku makes a little mountain out of yellow fluffballs at the entrance, then strolls back to his seat with composure. While the other half of the class stayed in their chairs and sweat-dropped, the other half was trying to deal with the chicks that were suddenly hopping around. The class was either by yelling, catching, or gathering. For a long, Kai couldn't stop giggling. Nobody saw that Izuku had one woman in his hair till break. "I'm glad you've been doing fine, aside from your usual wet coughing." Recovery girl smiled sweetly at the boy, "I'm happy you've been taking proper care of yourself." This is what occurs when Kyoku gets a sudden impulse while half sleeping. Shy at the compliments, Izuku touches the back of his head. "No, really," he says, "it's because everyone around me is so overprotective." Recovery girl spun around in her chair and said, "Then, I should thank them too. You can go back to class now, sweetie." Izuku hurriedly gets up and says, "Oh, thank you very much. Remember to take your medication as prescribed, avoid foolish actions, and prioritize your academics," she prompted me to remember. "Yes, ma'am." Izuku strolls along the hallway, relieved that, for the time being, his weekly examination is completed. "Oh, you." Izuku looks at the phone. Izuku assumes the adult who spoke to him was a teacher because of his long, black hair and tired-looking eyes. He also had an odd white scarf around his neck that covered much of his face. Yes, he recalls President Mick making fun of him in English class. He teaches Kaken's homeroom class, hero course, 1A. Yes, Ozawa-sensei, inquired Izuku. You're from Midoriya, right, he said, the child Mick mentioned. The ill child. Mick-sensei mentioned me earlier at the end. Izuku laughed awkwardly and said, yeah, I think so. After this, you have to study on your own, right? Ozawa didn't really anticipate a response. Are you willing to join a hero course class for a short while? What? Izuku was mildly shocked. Sure, afternoon courses today comprised of free time to develop some inventions of our own and exchange ideas among classmates, typically without a teacher's interference. To be simple, it's just called self-study. Well, I don't mind, but as always said, you get to test out your inventions. Yes, before he could stop himself, he blurted out, fantastic. Accompany me. So this guy's coming with us. Aizawa looked at Izuku. For the rescue class, it'd be more realistic if we had someone that actually dies a little every now and then as the casualty we need to rescue. Should I disregard that? There was a range of emotions in the class. Excitement, it's Deku-kun. Curiosity, who is he and why does sensei die occasionally? Indifference, well, it seems interesting, we get a better experience, at least. Motivation, can't be uncool in front of a support student. And plain anger. Kaken was, of course, the last one. Izuku was so afraid just then that he stared blankly, trying not to show it. His thoughts went something like this. I'm regretting this, oh my god, he's glaring at me, he's freaking glaring at me, oh my god. Bakugou Katsuki was not deterred by puppy dog eyes as he was glaring at Izuku, as though the latter were a dog that had gnawed through his beloved trainers. Anyway, as Awa-sensei said, you have complete discretion over whether or not to wear your costumes. He gave his class 15 minutes to prepare and congregate at the pitch. Yes, ma'am, the heroic path, Kyoku asked, his expression doubtful. Why would they ask you? A heroic path. That is fantastic. Hatsune, on the other hand, was ecstatic, saying, just picture all the thoughts that would come to mind when we see the rookie heroes with premature quirks. Well, that makes sense now, Aizu. You concentrate on designing gadgets that fit specific quirks, right? Kai chirped in, so you really ought to leave. Making things for people who aren't in conflict has its limits. Isn't it a little dangerous? Who is in charge of Mido-chan today? Haru entered the discussion. Nagomi said, I think we left the day free for his buddy. Mr. Boyfriend, whoever that was. Someday, I must see this guy. Says Kyoku. Kai quotes, I'm not letting him have my baby without permission. Kyoku gives him a face smack. Excellent. Hatsune laughed, we feel comfortable. Izuku slung his luggage onto his shoulders and said, that's how it is, so I'm sorry I can't help you guys out today. Make sure to fill me in on all that's happened after I'm back. Obviously. Kai chuckled. Kyoku casually gave a warning, saying, don't push yourself. He's taking the hero course, so I guess he'll be alright. Kai laughed. Tell me everything, including your baby's triumphs and setbacks. Make sure you use them in the best possible way. Hatsune smiled. Nagomi said, be careful and don't forget to have fun. I'm going. Izuku grinned in return. He arrived at the assembly place just as the last of the A-class students had assembled. Finding it difficult to carry around all the goods he intended to bring, he used his quirk to slightly lift some of it to relieve some of the weight off his back. After he boarded the bus, they set off. Hi there. Izuku was greeted on the bus by a boy with red hair that was spiky and said, I'm Kirishima. Nice to meet you. With a wide toothy smile on his face, he held out his hand in an attempt to shake hands. Oh, Izuku blurted out in a mild panic as he quickly took the hand, introducing himself awkwardly as I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you. My name is Kaminari. My name is Mineta. Hi. A girl interrupted. She had black hair pulled to the back in a ponytail, and her outfit was a little skimpy, although in a different and slightly more modest way from Midnight Sensei. You're overpowering him. Guys, go easy on the new names, she cautioned. I'm fine, Izuku told her, giving her a sincere smile. I'm actually having fun. The girl said, my name is Yaoi Rozumomo, and grinned as well. That's it. Kaminari chuckled, the student with the longest last name in class. He received a frown and lifted his hands in submission. Hi, Midoriya-chan, murmured the girl seated directly next to Izuku. Izuku halted when he realized he shouldn't be staring at a female for so long after noticing her features. Long, dark hair, big eyes, a slumped back, and a wide mouth. It has been bugging me, but what did Aizawa-sensei mean when she said that you occasionally die? This attracted the attention of a few people, who were rather intrigued. If you don't mind me asking, that is, she asked. Izuku turned his head away and said, then Asui Tsuyu says, please call me Tsuyu-chan. Well, basically Izuku conceded, Tsuyu-san, then. Hi. Bakugou Katsuki chimes in, frog, mind your own business. It catches him off guard. He looked surprised since, well, Katsuki was always a short-fused person, but this was unexpected. "Hi there," Kaken Izuku responds, "don't treat girls badly," he chastises. Kaken Kirishima became alarmed. "You stop talking," Katsuki snaps, "are you really hoping to die or something? Why the hell did you come along at all?" "I refuse to perish," Izuku moans. "I heard that the last time you were on the verge of drowning," Katsuki responds. "Kaken, are you able to remember things like pictures?" Izuku grunts. Kirishima said to the class as a whole, "What's this?" There was a violent debate between the two. Childhood friends, apparently. Iida murmurs. They have a great friendship, although violent. Uraraka nervously laughs and reassures them, "Don't worry, I don't think Bakugou-kun will kill Deku-kun." However, she isn't sure whether she can be confident either. Izuku cleared his throat. Everybody's heads turned. Blood. "Look, I just yelled this really loudly," Katsuki chastises. "Whoa." Gore Kirishima gets to his feet. Asui says, slyly, "I guess that answers my question. Are you okay, Midoriya-chan?" Izuku gives them a tissue and thanks Uraraka, saying, I'm okay. It happens all the time, so really, I'm actually feeling great today." Izuku says. "Recovery girl approved me as well." "Are you serious?" Katsuki is no longer trying to stop Deku. "I promise I'll be alright," Izuku laughed. "Well, if anything happens, recovery girl will have my head," so as always sensei responded, "All of you, protect him like your life depends on it." "Yes, ma'am." At the amazing sight, some people exclaimed, "Whoa. Is this Universal Studios Japan, USJ, or something?" With amazement. They turned to face the source of the voice, a person wearing a full-body spacesuit. "This is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, also known as USJ. This is a practical training area I created to simulate various accidents and disasters. Floods, landslides, ruins, etc." A new voice interrupted. "Whoa, that's really USJ. The space hero number 13 is here. He's the gentlemanly hero with expertise in disaster relief," Izuku exclaimed with excitement. "Kaya. 13 has always appealed to me." Uraraka gives a frantic cheer. "Alright then," 13 says, clearing his throat, "just keep in mind 1 or 2 things before we start. Maybe 3. Or 4. They're getting bigger." Aizawa-sensei calls out to him, Midoriya, gesturing for Izuku to approach. "You get a different set of rules." Izuku walks up to the black-haired teacher and says, "Oh yes sir." Being careful not to disturb the guest teacher. "First of all, try not to let your projects consume too much of your time. Hero course takes precedence here, so make sure it doesn't get in the way," Aizawa said, adding, "If you even slightly feel ill, please let someone nearby know. Recovery girl is aware of you, but it is meaningless if she is unable to get in touch with you in a timely manner." Izuku gave a nod. "Before I forget, Midnight Sensei also requests a full report on everything that occurs today and that you share the results with your class when you return." Izuku couldn't help but complain, "I understand," mumbling, "I think it's okay because I was going to take notes for Hatsume-san and the others, but should I obtain his permission to test out our joint invention? Would I be in trouble if I used it and he refused to share it? Well, maybe no one would know if I didn't acknowledge using it." The class burst into applause at 13's speech, interrupting him. "Bravo," said Iida. 13 made a spectacular bow, which excited everyone. "Okay," Aizawa decides to speak up, first things first with a sigh, leaning against the railing. He stopped, his gaze straying to the fountain and fast focusing on an odd black blotch floating in midair. The small, dark purple wisp started to spin like a vortex and increased at an unsettling rate as it spiraled. When the man emerged from the mist onto park grounds, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that he wasn't intended to be here at all. It was a severed hand that had been set on a face. That was the first thing Izuku saw about the man. His hair was a faded, dirty shade of light blue, and he had severed hands all over his body, as if it were a costume or a style. He was only skin and bones. Instead of taking the time to determine the appearance of his opponent, like Izuku did, Aizawa wheeled towards the students and 13, yelling commands from the back of his head, "Huddle together and don't move," the most crucial initial step in confronting hazards never seen before. A stunned, mostly bewildered look turned heads. However, now was not the moment. Turning to his current hero partner, Aizawa says, 13. Defend the pupils. He quickly put his goggles in place and knew exactly what to do next, so there was no time to second guess. The next moment, criminals of every description and peculiarity emerged in droves from the mist. "What is this? Is this similar to the entrance exam?" or Kirishima asked, expressing a sense of perplexity shared by the majority of the pupils. "Remain still," Eraserhead angrily yelled at his pupil. "Those people are bad guys." Aizawa shouted had to jump down first. The villains underestimated him and fell one by one. Their numerical advantage was narrowed by their disparity in experience. 13 started removing the pupils from the park. Head eraser. "Yes, exactly." He's always been good in one-on-one fights, Izuku muttered as she processed the facts. Hi there, Deku, it's not the right moment to be mumbling, Katsuki tugged him back by the bag. There's no time to ponder, Midoriya. Iida agreed, his hands moving jaggedly like a robot as he took responsibility in his role as class president. We gotta evacuate. I'm afraid I can't allow that. Suddenly, a massive black mist appeared in front of them, looming over them like a tsunami, and everyone froze, with some hesitating to retreat somewhat due to the risk. Todoroki caught his drift and crept closer, trying to keep the weaker lad out of sight, while Katsuki retreated, staying closer to Izuku and making sure the latter was behind him. The first thing a villain would do if they discovered a weak link like Izuku in their group was either capture him or go for him, neither course was better. Greetings. A semi-human figure emerged from the dark mist and a booming voice roared from a mouth hidden from view. We are the villain organization, the voice said. I apologize for the short notice, but we decided to visit UA Academy, the hero's home base. Izuku swallowed. Aizawa-sensei was correct, they had stormed into this location with a ludicrous scheme and a peculiarity that prevented outside communication. They were pursuing a dangerous target and Izuku understood that his presence here would only complicate matters for the hero course. Regarding the symbol of peace All Might, we were wondering if we might be allowed the opportunity to extinguish him, you see. The students gave a series of gasps and wide-eyed reactions at this, and Izuku caught his breath. All Might Sensei, he thought, was a great teacher and hero, with or without their personal relations. All Might was sometimes a surveillance teacher for the support class's self-study time. Their goal today was All Might, who was unable to make it. Was this tragedy or fortunate? Was it disaster for them and luck for All Might? Was it misfortune on both ends? With a pointed whisper, Katsuki said, Deku, you're mumbling. Izuku swiftly covered his lips, cursing his own negligence, but the adversary didn't seem to be fazed. Maybe anything has surfaced. Or had the plans changed? Black mist utters once more, but I will carry out my duty. Next, an explosion brought on by a certain boy's quirk engulfed the area in gray smoke as Bakugou and Kirishima leaped forward, their quirks already activating at their hands as they both delivered a strong punch at the face of the black mist. I bet you didn't believe we could get rid of you before you could get going with a hint of pride, Kirishima declared. Huffing, a little pleased with the blow he'd managed to land, Katsuki acknowledged that, although punching fog was an odd move, his explosion was still capable of dealing harm. So this is the hero course in UA? He knew it wasn't the right time, but it was still a novel experience, and he had never seen individuals his age push up ahead like true heroes. They responded immediately. Izuku paused in astonishment, surprise, and, well, awe. Well, that was a close shave. It is ineffective. You two, run, reacting quicker than any other student, 13 screamed at Katsuki and Kirishima, telling them to get out of there immediately. It was too late, the black mist suddenly grew enormously, like an overflowing dam, swallowing the two boys at the front and quickly encircling the remaining pupils. Izuku saw Todoroki standing in front of him, but the mist quickly got in the way and he ended himself diving headfirst into a pool of water. He raised his arms to his face and said, It was unexpected to find himself buried in water, but it was also a welcome wake-up call. His bag pulled him down, but Izuku used his oddity to turn himself upright and regain his equilibrium. He saw a villain submerged in the water. It was a sea creature, he realized, a mutant sort, and it didn't take him long to figure out that the villain wasn't alone. They were all suited for the water, which wasn't good, and that he was moving directly for Izuku with his weapon. Oh my, he attempted to move away, but there's no way he could outrun a fish in the water, much less one that was dragging a bag after him. The purse. He threw them aside, taking the bag off his back, realizing that he would have to give up on them for the time being. A figure of a girl sprang out of the water, moving quickly to close range and stomping hard on the villain's back before anyone could notice her, and then her eyes shifted to Izuku and she opened her mouth, a long, pink tongue structure reaching out towards the large end around his waist. They were above the water before Izuku could register. He, Asui, and a small youngster he vaguely recalled as Mineta. Mineta murmured sleepily, ugh. You're a frog, but your bustiness is. For a brief moment, Asui's cheeks flushed, but she pretended not to notice and wasted no time in hurling the fool up to the boat. As for Izuku, she set him down carefully and gently so he could stand up, then picked up his luggage and got up herself. Izuku answered, thanks, Sayu-san. He reached into his bag to see if anything had spilled out because the zipper had come undone during the altercation. Midoriya, what's in the bag? Asui inquired, it felt unusually heavy. With a simple response and eyes fixed on the bag, Midoriya said, stuff from the support class. Oh no, of all things, I lost the machine I made with Kyoku-san. Anyway, Midoriya, we're all going to perish. Mineta sulked, why are you worrying so much about your robots these days? Izuku brushed off Minetta's comment almost as if he was ignoring it entirely, saying, there goes the whole rescue class, but I think we have more to worry about. If their target is All Might Sensei. No, but All Might cannot be killed by them, Mineta countered, disregarding the disregard as well, saying, I mean, he's the unbreakable emblem of peace. But suppose they succeed. Izuku uttered those words. Asui concurred, saying, he's right, Mineta-kun. It sounds silly, but if they ventured into enemy territory with such audacity, they had better have a good plan up their sleeves. Most likely, they managed to eliminate All Might. But he continued, but what are we supposed to do against villains? Mineta froze. We're just starting out. Nor does Midoriya belong in the hero course, he pointed, saying, he's the kind of guy who, in my words, passes away a little every second. However, they're not assaulting us. Izuku pointed out, looking towards the water where the enemies hovered in. They stayed a distance away from the boat, seemingly wary. Why? Perhaps they are trying to bait us into a suicide fight in the ocean, although Asui wouldn't be in any danger there. Why are they avoiding the boat? They have a clear advantage in this zone, isn't that why they are stationed here? That concludes it. Now's not the time to get stage fright, Midoriya, he began. If they sent Sayu-san, with a water animal quirk, to the flood zone, that means. Izuku paused the moment he realized how attentively the two were watching at him. Asui responded, take your time, Midoriya. What I mean is that since they sent Sayu-san, who has the advantage in water, to the flood zone, it's evident that we have one advantage against them we can use, Izuku said, taking a deep breath before continuing, his tone now more serious and controlled. Benefit. It's just our peculiarities. They're unaware of our peculiarities, Izuku remarked. This surprised Asui. That's true, she thought, they would have sent me to the fire zone over there if they had known I was a frog. Glancing towards the structure that housed the conflagration zone, she said, it wouldn't be very enjoyable for me. Therefore, I believe we ought to utilize our peculiarities to the fullest. Fortunately, that's my area of expertise, but yet, Izuku remarked. Asui said, realizing what he was getting at, I can jump fairly high. I can also turn my stomach inside out or secrete some poisonous mucus that kind of stings a little. The last two are pretty much useless. My peculiarity is magnet. I have a good deal of control over little metal objects. Izuku stated, I can control something up to about 10 meters in length, but I'm sorry that I can't control anything larger. For instance, it's not able to manage the boat. Mineta removed a purple ball from his head, which I believe was hair, and he placed it on the boat side, saying, this is really sticky. It won't come off until maybe a day, given my current state of health. It just bounces off me because I'm the only one who isn't sensitive to the stickiness. They stared at one another in awkward stillness, unsure of how to respond or say anything. I know it's a useless quirk, I told you, this is pointless. He said, tears pouring from his eyes. My quirk is completely useless in combat. It's not fit for combat. No, wait. It's such a cool oddity. Trying to calm him down, Izuku panicked and said, I was thinking of a way to use it. The boat abruptly overturned violently and started to sink. You're getting annoying, a villain complained, presumably in reference to Mineta's cries for let's just finish them already. Mineta threw his purple blobs into the sea, shouting, till, finally, he just pointed at it and turned to face Izuku. Mineta, please don't give up on us. Try not to show them your quirk. Izuku tried. His gaze straight to the lake. Izuku noted that the criminals were careful, avoiding the unknown purple things in case they were dangerous. His gaze moved to his bag. Anything I can use, but we're all gonna die whenever I make something with Kyoku-san, I always lose it. Pay attention. Izuku forced to hush and said sternly, I have a plan. Izuku started putting a weird earbud-like contraption on his head. It connected to a section at his nape, directly above his choker, and the earbuds went to the back of his ears and his temples. A strategy. I hope it's not anything reckless, Asui replied, brushing off the unusual item. Suddenly, she remembered the boy's health issue. What strategy? He was still crying out of dread and anxiety, but at least he was eager to listen. Mineta sniffed. He began, I dropped a couple of things down there in the water, and one of them's a twister jet, describing what he had taken out of his backpack and the missing items. There was silence right away. Izuku hesitated, unsure of what he had said incorrectly. What? Was all Mineta could manage to say. Would you mind going into further detail? Asui asked. Basically, Izuku explained, it gathers air from its The support class is amazing. Mineta applauds in amazement. Izuku looks down and says, but that thing is meant to be operated by me alone. He holds up a fist and explains, I have to turn gears and stuff, it has to be manually activated from the inside with my quirk. Why would you give it such a bothersome activation procedure? Mineta moaned. Please don't ask, Izuku sighed, turning away slightly embarrassed. I need to know where it is and how far away it is from me precisely because I have a distance limit. When Asui first dove in and was surveying her surroundings, she noticed a peculiar yellow statue that caught her interest, but she wrote it off as a prop. About that, Asui said, raising a hand, I saw something that looked like a Pac-Man statue down there in the water. That concludes it. Izuku cried out, that's the gadget. Pac-Man 3 Vortex. Remember where you saw it, if you can. Asui turned her thoughts back to the baddies and said, I believe that's around there where that green fish guy is. I'm not sure, she said, considering how quickly she had raced to Izuku's rescue. Izuku remarked, if it's around there, it's definitely at the water floor because it's pretty heavy. The depth of the pool. I have to get just above it. How? I can't just dive right in. What if I let Sayu-sen enter? No, she can't manage all of the bad guys. The fishes would distract me and make it difficult for me to concentrate while avoiding opponents. Alternatively, I would get sucked into the maze and miss the objective. Izuku stared at Asui and Mineta and thought, no, that's not what I should be thinking, that's not who I should be doubting. They're heroes. Mineta-kun, Sayu-san. But the smile, just follow the current. He then jumped from the boat. Focus, Izuku, focus. He cried out, pumping his fist high in the air. They thought to themselves, the villain's hot-headed brat, once he hits the water, he dies. They just need to stand there and wait for the moment they help this boy kill himself. Izuku stretches a hand, already starting to dip too close to the waves, and his quirk picked up a familiar weight. There it was, he thought without pausing to turn the familiar gears. The water immediately began to sink, drawing the baddies in like a pack of teeth. It was whirled around and eventually came to a halt in the center, forming a massive spiral. Well, what was the boy up to? Leap forward. It's not possible. When Asui finally reacted, she took Mineta under her arm and jumped off the boat with her tongue flying in Midoriya's direction and encircling his waist. Moron, you Midoriya. Mineta, giving one last sniff, began desperately throwing hairballs at the water, yelling out a war cry, whatever. I'm not going to lose. Don't move so quickly. Whoa, I can't get these things off of me. They refused to budge. I can't. Mineta's purple blobs were now all over them, and before long, they were locked in the center of the whirlpool, glued together in one massive cluster. Mineta sniffs once more, his quirk being overused and causing blood to stream down his face. Izuku takes a deep breath, turns off the vortex Pac-Man, the device was out of range after a second, and starts to steady his breathing. Asui gripped the tube beneath her arm and hopped around with her legs and tongue, saying, seriously, you two, you're both reckless. Sucked up by a dense mist of dark indigo, Kirishima Ijiru soon realized they were in the ruin zone, specifically in a half-broken building surrounded by other half-broken buildings in the half-broken structures zone. Katsuki swore first, letting forth a sound that sounded like an unbearably painful, incredibly frustrated cry to the sky. Whoa, at the noise, Kirishima winced. First, chill out, bro. He attempted, first fuck you, he cried out. Deku's a villain leapt at him through a hole in the roof, interrupting him. Kirishima reacted more quickly, hardening his arms and placing them over his head, hardening it too, to protect himself from the swing of a sword, which broke in two, steel failing against rock. A moment later, Evildors that had been hiding in the shadows surfaced and surrounded the two kids. Griet, murmured Kirishima, bending his back to face Katsuki. This was his way of saying, think you could leave the scolding for later? I'll take whatever's behind you, so leave your back to me. Katsuki grits his teeth angrily and replies, fuck no. I'm so fucking pissed off right now. These fucking mob characters can go fuck it. Can we still classify this story as tea at this point? Mortified by the notion of being outnumbered by extremely enraged foes, Kirishima gapes at Katsuki, shaking his head in disbelief at how the explosion child has literally taunted an entire group of adversaries. And Katsuki's face was dark, his eyes frozen in a glare, his brows screwed up, his teeth gritting violently, and his fists clenched firmly. His lips were set in a grimace. Die. Katsuki charged towards the villains, just go fucking after explosion. Katsuki was physically exploding with wrath, and soon all the villains were instinctively, desperately diving away from him, but failing. Kirishima eventually went with the flow, attacking anybody he could reach. Die, fucking die. Kirishima perspires. Wow, he thought to himself, he's growing angrier by the minute. Izuku was mumbling under his breath as the three of them walked along the water, his adrenaline running low. Oh my god, that was so freaking scary, I was so worried I wouldn't find the machine at all. Kyoku-san would be happy to hear that Vortex Pac-Man 3 worked in water, but what about the fact I just left it back there? That was so close, we could have died if I had turned the gear 1 second slower, if it had been a bit farther away, or if Sayu-san had grabbed me a second slower. Midoriya-chan, stop that. Asui cut him off from his thoughts. You're scary. Their communications were problematic and Izuku's suitcase had nothing that could improve the situation, so they were making the lengthy trip around to the exit, attempting to avoid the center plaza altogether as they left the park in search of assistance. "I'm a little worried about Izawa-sensei," Izuku said, turning to face the center of the park where Eraserhead was engaged in a struggle with villains. Eraserhead specializes in these sort of fights, but that's way too many villains, no matter how you look at it. "Are you not saying that you want to go over?" Mineta gave a little cry. "But," he stammered, "maybe if we go over there, we can ease his load for a little while. No need to jump into the battle. Simply search for opportunities." At the moment, it sounded really wonderful, as if we could really pull off something like that with relative ease. However, we were operating under the delusion that these bad guys were vulnerable to our weak untrained peculiarities. They had made the decision to proceed to the center plaza, but Izuku still worried about their lack of communication. He let out a sigh, stopped the menacing whispering, and reached up to his neck and the back of the choker. "What on earth are you doing, Midoriya-chan?" Asui raised her voice. After locating the button and pressing it, he said, "Turning off the power on my medical choker." "And why do you act in that manner?" Curious, Asui cocked her head to the side. "My health is continuously monitored by this choker, which also transmits back a variety of data for Recovery Girl to review." He clarified, "So, in the event that anything were to happen to me, Recovery Girl would immediately be notified and provide help. If the transmission were to abruptly terminate, Recovery Girl would be aware of a potential emergency and would send someone to the scene or possibly even an ambulance. Hopefully." "Great idea." Mineta replied, "But too bad we didn't think of it." Early Asui pushed Mineta's face under the water, saying, "But Midoriya-chan, isn't that hazardous for you?" Katsuki had been stressing over Izuku's condition in the van, and she was very sure Katsuki wasn't one to over-exaggerate such things. Now that she was worried, she's nearly wondering why he can keep doing these irresponsible things. Izuku was a weak child. He gave his assurance, saying, "Just for a little while, so it'll be fine. More like, our situation right now is more dangerous. This is something my classmate made based on your Raka-sen's gear, with a little twist," he said, gesturing to the earphone-like device atop his head. "Oh, we had the chance to learn about it from your Raka-sen herself, so," he said absently. "But basically it'll ease my headaches for a while and keep my condition as stable as it can." "I'm not sure I get it, but the support class is awesome," Mineta interjects. Asui says, "Well, that's great then." Thanks for watching guys, that's it for today, so hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget check out our author of this fanfic link and details in description.